Hare Krishna. All right, let's see what happens. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. And Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. And Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Paramahamsa Parivajaka Ashtoter to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Ashtoter to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the Asama devotees. All glory to the Asama devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya. Narang chaiva narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayeshu Bandreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Can someone get those curtains for me? Okay, so before we chant this verse, which is text 31, I'm going to read the chapter summary. And I'm going to read all those verses leading up to this verse, which have no purports, very short purports. So this is chapter 15 of Canto 8. It's entitled, Bali Mahārāja Conquers the Heavenly Planets. Wait a minute. Okay. So on this, I forgot, 23rd day of June, 2025, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, translation commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Dasa, and we're beginning again with chapter 15 and the chapter summary titled Bali Mahārāja Conquers the Heavenly Planets. This chapter describes how Bali, after performing the Vṛhaspati Yajna, received the benediction of a chariot and various kinds of paraphernalia for war, with which he attacked the King of Heaven. All the demigods, being afraid of him, left the heavenly planets and went away, following the instructions of their guru. Mahārāja Parikshit wanted to understand how Lord Vamanadev, on the plea of taking 3 paces of land from Bali Mahārāja, took everything away from him and arrested him. Śukadeva Gosvāmī responded to this inquiry with the following explanation. In the fight between the demons and the demigods, as described in the 11th chapter of this canto, Bali was defeated, and he died in the fight, but by the grace of Śukacharya, he regained his life. Thus he engaged himself in the service of Śukacharya, his spiritual master. The descendants of Bhrigu, being pleased with him, engaged him in the Vṛhaspati Yajna. Vṛhaspati means conquering the universe. When this yajna was performed from the fire of yajna, when this yajna was performed, from the fire of yajna came a chariot, horses, a flag, a bow, armor, and 2 quivers of arrows. Maharaj Prahlād, Bali Mahārāja's grandfather, gave Bali an eternal garland of flowers, and Śukacharya, his guru, gave him a conch shell. Bali Mahārāja, after offering obeisances to Prahlād, the Brahmins, and his spiritual master Śukacharya, equipped himself to fight with Indra and went to Indrapuri with his soldiers. Blowing his conch shell, he attacked the outskirts of Indra's kingdom. When Indra saw Bali Mahārāja's prowess, he went to his own spiritual master, Bṛhaspati, told him about Bali's strength, and inquired about his duty. Bṛhaspati informed the demigods that because Bali had been endowed with extraordinary power by the Brahmins, the demigods could not fight with them. Their only hope was to gain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, there was no alternative. Under the circumstances, Bṛhaspati advised the demigods to leave the heavenly planets and keep themselves somewhere invisible. The demigods followed his orders, and Bali Mahārāja, along with his associates, gained the entire kingdom of Indra. The descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being very affectionate to their disciple Bali Mahārāja, engaged him in performing 100 Ashvamedha yajnas. In this way, Bali enjoyed the opulences of the heavenly planets. So now we'll read the text. I'm going to read the first two verses, which are to get in Sanskrit, and then we'll go on with English, and then we'll chant this verse at 31. Shri Rajo Vacham Bale Padatrayam Bhume Kasmad Harirayachata Bhuteshara Kripanaval Labdharto Pi Babandatam Etan Vedanamichamo Mahat Kautu Halam Hinaha Yajnesh Varasya Purnasya Bandhanam Chapyanagasaha. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything. Why did he beg 3 paces of land from Bali Mahārāja like a poor man? And when he got the gift for which he had begged, why did he nonetheless arrest Bali Mahārāja? I am very much anxious to know the mystery of these contradictions. Text 3, English. Śukadeva Gosvāmī said, O king, when Bali Mahārāja lost all his opulence and died in the fight, Śukacharya, a descendant of Bhrigu Muni, brought him back to life. Because of this, the great soul Bali Mahārāja became a disciple of Śukacharya and began to serve him with great faith, offering everything he had. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu Muni were very pleased with Bali Mahārāja, who desired to conquer the kingdom of Indra. Therefore, after purifying him and properly bathing him according to regular principles, they engaged him in performing the yajna known as Vṛhaspati. When ghee was offered in the fire of sacrifice, there appeared from the fire a celestial chariot covered with gold and silk. There also appeared yellow horses like those of Indra, and a flag marked with a lion. A gilded bow, 2 quivers of infallible arrows, and celestial armor also appeared. Bali Mahārāja's grandfather, Prahlāda Mahārāja, offered Bali a garland of flowers that would never fade, and Śukacharya gave him a conch shell. When Mahārāja Bali had thus performed the special ritualistic ceremony advised by the Brahmins and had received, by their grace, the equipment for fighting, he circumambulated the Brahmins and offered them obeisances. He also saluted Prahlāda Mahārāja and offered obeisances to him. Text 8 and 9. Then, after getting on the chariot given by Śukacharya, Bali Mahārāja, decorated with a nice garland, put protective armor on his body, equipped himself with a bow, and took up a sword and a quiver of arrows. Excuse me. When he sat down on the seat of the chariot, his arms decorated with golden bangles and his ears with sapphire earrings, he shone like a worshipable fire. When he assembled with his own, let's see, this is verses 10 and 11. When he assembled with his own soldiers and the demon chiefs, who were equal to him in strength, opulence, and beauty, they appeared as if they would swallow the sky and burn all directions with their vision. After thus gathering the demoniac soldiers, Bali Mahārāja departed for the opulent capital of Indra. Indeed, he seemed to make the entire surface of the world tremble. Now this is kind of puzzling to me. Maybe we can figure it out later. This is going on interplanetary. I mean, where's the world? Is that the Earth planet? Well, I don't know. Anyway. King Indra's city was full of pleasing orchards and gardens, such as the Nandana garden. Because of the weight of the flowers, leaves, and fruit, the branches of the eternally existing trees were bending down. The gardens were visited by pairs of chirping birds and singing bees. The entire atmosphere was celestial. Heavenly planet. Beautiful women protected by the demigods sported in the gardens, which had lotus ponds full of swans, cranes, chakravakas, and ducks. The city was surrounded by trenches full of Ganges water, known as Akash Ganga, and by a high wall which is the color of fire. Upon the wall were parapets for fighting. Text 15. The doors were made of solid gold plate, and the gates were made of excellent marble. These were linked by various public roads. The entire city had been constructed by Vishvakarma. The city was full of courtyards, wide roads, assembly houses, and not less than 100 million airplanes. Okay. The crossroads were made of pearl, and there were sitting places made of diamonds and coral. Everlastingly beautiful and youthful women, who were dressed with clean garments, glittered in the city like fires with flames. They all possessed the quality of Shyama. Okay, a little purport here by quoting from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who gives a hint of the quality of the Shyama women. Shita kale bhavet ushna, ushma kale sushitalaha. Stanau sukuntinau yasam ta Shyama padikirtitaha. A woman whose body is very warm during the winter and cool during the summer, and who generally has very firm breasts, is called Shama. Okay, I don't think we have to memorize that one. Next text, 18. The breezes blowing in the streets of the city bore the fragrance of the flowers falling from the hair of the women of the demigods. Apsaras passed on the streets, which were covered with the white, fragrant smoke of a guru incense emanating from windows with golden filigree. Text 20. The city was shaded by canopies decorated with pearls, and the domes of the palaces had flags of pearl and gold. The city always resounded with the vibrations of peacocks, pigeons, and bees, and above the city flew airplanes full of beautiful women who constantly chanted auspicious songs that were very pleasing to the ear. And just one quick comment on this. So you can continue to describe this heavenly planet. And someone who just skips over and reads this passage first in the Bhagavatam say, well, that sounds pretty good. Let me see if I can go there. But the problem is that it's now being conquered by the demons. In other words, it's not, you can't stay there forever. There's also birth, old age, disease, and death. So don't get any ideas, okay? All right. The city was filled with sounds of mridungas, conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and well-tuned stringed instruments, all playing in concert. There was constant dancing, and the Gandharvas sang. The combined beauty of Indrapuri defeated beauty personified. Text 22. No one who was sinful, envious, violent toward other living entities, cunning, falsely proud, lusty, or greedy could enter that city. Hare Krishna. My class is complete now. I can go. I just got it. Hare Krishna. The people who lived there were all devoid of these faults. Okay, text 23. Bali Mahārāja, who was the commander of numberless soldiers, gathered his soldiers outside this abode of Indra and attacked it from all directions. He sounded the conch shell given him by his spiritual master, Śukadeva, thus creating a fearful situation for the women protected by Indra. Seeing Bali Mahārāja's indefatigable, that's how you pronounce it, indefatigable endeavor, and understanding his motive, King Indra, along with the other demigods, approached his spiritual master, Bṛhaspati, and spoke as follows. My lord, our old enemy Bali Mahārāja now has new enthusiasm, and he has obtained such astonishing power that we think that perhaps we cannot resist his prowess. No one anywhere can counteract this military arrangement of Bali's. It now appears that Bali is trying to drink up the entire universe with his mouth, lick up the 10 directions with his tongue, and raise fire in every direction with his eyes. Indeed, he has arisen like the annihilating fire known as Samvartika. Kindly inform me, what is the cause for Bali Mahārāja's strength, endeavor, influence, and victory? How has he become so enthusiastic? 28. Bṛhaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, said, O Indra, I know the cause for your enemies becoming so powerful. The Brahman descendants of Bhrigu, being pleased by Bali Mahārāja, their disciple, endowed him with such extraordinary power. So I'm going to read this purport and text 29 and 30, and then we'll chant 31. Bṛhaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, informed Indra, quote, ordinarily, Bali and his forces could not achieve such strength, but it appears that the Brahman descendants of Bṛhaspati, being pleased with Bali Mahārāja, endowed him with this spiritual power. Close quote. In other words, Bṛhaspati informed Indra that Bali Mahārāja's prowess was not his own, but that of his exalted guru, Śukadeva. We sing in our daily prayers, Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, Yasya prasadat nagati kutopi. By the pleasure of the spiritual master, one can get extraordinary power, especially in spiritual advancement. The blessings of the spiritual master are more powerful than one's personal endeavor for such advancement. Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, we sing every morning, Guru Mukha Padmavaki Chitte Kodiya Aike Arna Kodiya Manayasha. Especially for spiritual advancement, one should carry out the bona fide order of the spiritual master. By the parampara system, one can thus be endowed with the original spiritual power coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Evam parampara praptam imam raja shriyo vidahu. Okay, text 29. Neither you nor your men can conquer the most powerful Bali. Indeed, no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can conquer him, for he is now equipped with the supreme spiritual power of Brahma Tejas. As no one can stand before Yamaraj, no one can now stand before Bali Mahārāja. Text 30. Therefore, waiting until the situation of your enemies is reversed, you should all leave this heavenly planet and go elsewhere where you will not be seen. So text 31. Esha vipra palodarkah sampatyurjita vikramaha tesham evapamanena sanubandho vinangshyati. Esha viprabalodarkah sampratyurjita vikramaha tesham evapamanena sanubandho vinangshyati. Esha viprabalodarkah sampratyurjita vikramaha tesham evapamanena sanubandho vinangshyati. Esha Vipram Balodaka Sampratyujita Vikramaha Teshamevapamahanena Sanubandho Manakshati. Someone else? Esha Vipram Balotarka Sampratyujita Vikramaha Teshamevapamahanena Sanubandho Vinankshati. Esha Vipra Balodarka Sampratyujita Vikramaha Teshamevapamahanena Sanubandho Vinankshati. Word by words. Esha, this Bali Mahārāja, Vipra Bala Udarkaha, flourishing because the Brahminical power invested in him. Because of the Samprati, at the present moment. Urjita Vikramaha, extremely powerful. Tesham, of the same Brahmins. Eva, indeed. Apamanena, by insult. Sa anubandha, with friends and assistants. Vinakshiti, will be vanquished. Translation. Bali Mahārāja has now become extremely powerful because of the benedictions given him by the Brahmins. But when he later insults the Brahmins, he will be vanquished, along with his friends and assistants. Purport. Bali Mahārāja and Indra were enemies. Therefore, when Bṛhaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, predicted that Bali Mahārāja would be vanquished when he insulted the Brahmins, by whose grace he had become so powerful, Bali Mahārāja's enemies were naturally anxious to know when that opportune moment would come. To pacify King Indra, Bṛhaspati assured him that the time would certainly come, for Bṛhaspati could see that in the future. Bali Mahārāja would defy the orders of Śukadeva in order to pacify Lord Vishnu, Vamanadev. Of course, to advance in Krishna consciousness, one can take all risks. To please Vamanadev, Bali Mahārāja risked defying the orders of his spiritual master, Śukadeva. Because of this, he would lose all his property. Yet, because of devotional service to the Lord, he would get more than he expected. And in the future, in the 8th Manvantara, he would occupy the throne of Indra again. Om Gyara Timarandasya Gyarandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So one of the themes here is how within the Leela of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's so many individuals who are changing roles. The most obvious is Bali Mahārāja. He was descendant of Prahlāda. Prahlāda is born in a demon family. So he was born in a demon family, but he was blessed because of Prahlāda, right? That he wouldn't be killed by the Lord. He promised he wouldn't be killed so many generations forward. Another one was Bārāsura, who didn't quite get the same benediction as Bali, lost most of his arms, but he wasn't killed. He wasn't killed by Krishna in that fight. So Bali Mahārāja, as we know, is one of the Mahājans, and he is the exemplar of Atma-nivedana, of surrendering everything. So everything finally turns out okay for him. But when you read the pastime, as we will in the future verses, we'll see that although he gave everything to Vishnu, and this is one of the things that's puzzling King Pariksit, and he donated everything. Aditi was very distressed because all her children, demigods, were exiles now, and so she was very upset. And so her husband, was it husband or Kashyapa, he advised him to do the Payovrata ceremony in order to get a son who would help. So she did that very, very carefully, and Vamanadev was born to her. And then, we know the pastime. Vamanadev, as translated, is a dwarf, right? He's a dwarf. But the American English dwarf, meaning of that word, is unhealthily and unnaturally small because of disease, distorted. Look it up in the dictionary. That's not Vamanadev. Vamanadev is just miniature. He's miniature, a midget. But anyway, so he was, and all these demigods came and gave him gifts, so he was all decked out in beautiful brahmachari clothes. And then he goes to Bali, who's performing this big sacrifice under Śukacharya's instruction. And Śukacharya himself, now he embodies also this kind of dual identity. I don't know if you know this, but what's it, Ushana? In chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling, I am this, and I of these, I am this. So of Brahmins or of scholars, I think learned scholars, I am Ushana. Who's Ushana? Śukacharya. Krishna identifies with Śukacharya, who has a role to play as giving a bad advice to Bali, and so he's. So how the identity is there? Bali Mahārāja himself has this dual role of being a demon, but really a devotee at heart, and becomes a Mahājan devotee by offering everything. And also Indra. I mean, Indra himself always gets into trouble because he can't control his senses, right? And give the example, those who are familiar with, I think, the 6th canon, with the story of Chitraketu and Vritrasura. So that's a perfect example where you find that Vritrasura, he's not really an asura, he's not really a demon, he's actually a devotee, right? And Indra, he's got these blessings. What happened was that they again lost their kingdom to the demons. And so they went to Narayan and they prayed to him, what should we do, what should we do? Well, you go to the Dichi and ask him for his body, and then from his bones you make a thunderbolt for Indra that'll be even more invincible than the one he has now. So that's pretty gruesome, I mean, that's Krishna advising him to do. But they did it, and he did it. He said, okay, take my body, what do I care, Hare Krishna, And so then they made these thunderbolts, so he was invincible. So now he could do battle with Vritrasura. So Vritrasura also is Chitraketu reincarnated in the body of a demon, but he's not really a demon, he's really a devotee, right? So here you have these dual roles. They keep changing back and forth. And this is one thing you find in the Bhagavatam, that by the arrangement of Krishna, and sometimes it seems pretty puzzling and amazing. And also just think of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. I mean, Hiranyakashipu is almost like the most hair-raising demon you could imagine, right? I mean, he's very, very powerful and very, very greedy. That's what his name means. Gold and soft bedding. And Prabhupada says in the lecture, gold and the soft bedding and the bed companion. You can understand what that means. So, and his brother also, Hiranyaksha, always looking for gold, mining so much that the whole earth became unbalanced and fell into the Garbhodak ocean. But that's Jai and Vijay. They're devotees, right? But it's covered. So this is one of the things that comes out in this pastime also. Bali's a demon, but he's one of the greatest devotees. He's one of the Mahājans. Śukacharya is the spiritual master of the demons, and when in the conversation between Bali and Śukacharya, when the pastime occurs, Śukacharya advises him not to offer anything to Vamanadev, who just seems to be a small Brahmin begging alms, And then so he said, no, don't give him anything. That's Krishna, that's God. He'll take everything. He said, and you taught me to give everything to God, and now you're taking it back. So how did he do that if he's a demon, So all of these kind of out of character things are going on. And that's one of the amazing things of this. So one thing in the note of a Manvantara, Manvantara means the period of time that a Manu reigns. And during that time, you'll have Manvantara avatars, who are actually Vishnu Tattva, who help in the management of the universe during that particular Manvantara. Now, in this Manvantara of ours, Vamanadev is the Manvantara avatar. And so don't confuse them. You have the Manus, you have the Manvantaras, this is the period, and the Manvantara avatars, who are the Vishnu Tattva aides. They help in the management of the universe for each Manu. Okay, so yeah, so this is what I was asked to do. So this is now we had this description of the heavenly planets. This is another thing to get from this pastime. And so Indra, you know, they arranged it in such a wonderful way. You've got all the facilities, and it's all natural. You have mridangas playing completely in time, music going on all the time. The women are all beautiful and everything. But what's the problem with it? It can be conquered. It's got the same problem down here. You have the demons always envious the demigods, and so it's not sure. And even if you do live out your time there, it's still limited. You may live there hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, but it ends. And when you come down, apparently there's some really gruesome way in which you often come down. Your punya is finished, right? As Krishna says in the Gita, we know the verse, Chine punye matyalokam bishanti. So several places in the Gita, he says, don't worship the demigods, go to the heavenly planets. It's simply temporary, and you fall down again. So what happens when you fall down? Well, apparently, that you're cast out, and on the way down, your body's being eaten by rakshasas, you see? And then your soul takes shelter of a drop of water in the rain, and then that falls and it grows into some grain or something that's then harvested and eaten by a human being, and then into the man's semen, and then you can take birth as a human being. But that fall is a pretty scary prospect. We should convince us not to go up there at all, because this is a whole thing, you know, of like in the Vedic culture, the karma kanda. I think there may be more people doing that, you know, in India than maybe chanting Hare Krishna. Because when you chant Hare Krishna, you know, Krishna, his name is Hari. He takes everything away, right? Now, I don't want to become a pauper. I worked so hard for my degree. Now I've got a nice AI job. You know, forget it. So there has to be the knowledge, the understanding, which is so important. That, no, our real home and our real benefit is to end this round of birth and death, which goes on anywhere in the material world, heavenly planets, hellish planets, this planet, everywhere. As soon as you have a body made of matter, it's going to end, right? So that's therefore Krishna says, as has been quoted recently, you know, among all the elements of knowledge, one of them is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha, and Darshanam. Now, it's not just a list of those of birth, old age, disease, and death, but is Dukkha, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha, Anudarshanam. One should always be aware. Anudarshana means to keep it in your, you know, near front of your mind, of the evils, part of the evils, which means in this case, the painful element of it. Evil can also mean that, something which causes you suffering. Of birth, old age, disease, and death. Now, by the blessing of the Lord, we forget that. I don't think anyone here can remember his last birth. Maybe some of you have developed that power. But we know there was a last birth. And we certainly don't remember the birth, right? Does anyone remember the time in the womb? It's not very pleasant. I mean, it's described there in the third canto very graphically, you know. And of course, nowadays you could be aborted and all kinds of things. And then after that, okay, we're born, fine. Now, you know, we're in a family and we're growing up. But there's all kinds of dangers, the threefold miseries, and the disease. We had the pandemic. That was actually the golden, the cloud with the silver lining. I mean, it was dangerous, and I was distressed by it. But a lot of people who had gotten the book were, coming, like our friend Govardhan here, they joined up at that time. Well, maybe I can get serious because I go to the supermarket and who knows what's breathing out on me. Ordinarily, you don't think about that. You just live your life. But it became in everybody's mind, hey, there's this pandemic and millions of people are dying and suffering. So let me check out that Hare Krishna, go back home, back to God. So anyway, we had some people join and several stayed, such as our wonderful Govardhan and Dvijamani. And so what do you learn in read the Bhagavatam? You read the Bhagavad Gita. You learn, yes, this place is a place of misery. That it's a complete illusion to try to make a permanent place of happiness here. There's no permanent place. You're getting older, and even if you don't get into a war, or no one kills you on the street, or you don't get the pandemic, whatever, you're going to die anyway. Everything that's born dies. You see? So the question is, well, okay, what can I do for my ultimate benefit? It's the classic Shreyas and Preyas. Prayers is immediate good. Now, when you kind of have to see there's a flexibility there. Immediate means, well, okay, what can I do now? Okay, I'm just entering high school, Now I'm entering high school, my parents tell me, my advisors tell me, yes, if you work hard and get into a good university, get a good degree, then you can become successful and have a comfortable life, Of course, a lot of that dream is being shot, All of the fellows who learn computers and all this stuff, AI is getting the job. They much rather just plug in the AI machine than give you a good salary. So this is material world. It's always changing, but we are permanent. We are eternal. We are eternal souls, exiled from the spiritual world because of our foolish endeavor to enjoy like Krishna. That's the prime teaching. So what can we do? Because we have so many habits and so many impulses and so many desires from past life and this life before we come to Krishna consciousness. And our mind is filled with those. And if we don't do anything, they're going to push us to go here and do there. The advantage of Krishna consciousness, of Bhakti Yoga, as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that immediately, without any prerequisite, there's no hard and fast rule. Nam nama kardi bahodani sarva shaktis tatrapitani amitak smarane nakala etadrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midisha mahajani nanuraga. Now there, Lord Chaitanya is taking the role of someone who is praying to the Lord for a taste, right? He says, I have no taste for the holy name. This is Lord Chaitanya. But he's teaching us, because in our present state we don't. But if we believe this verse, Krishna has infused his energies into the holy name. He has empowered the holy name. That's what it means. Nidya sarva shakti tatrapita. And then there's no hard and fast rules for chanting. Hard and fast rules is there's no limitation of time, place, or candidate. Anyone, anytime can chant it. Just like you go in the bathroom, fine, you can chant it. Don't chant anything else. Don't start chanting the Bhagavad Gita in the bathroom. But you can chant Hare Krishna. There's even a pastime, I think, where Gopal Guru, right, became, because he advised, you can go in there and chant, Anyway, so what's the advantage? The advantage is as soon as you're chanting with some faith and some attention, obviously not purely, you're going to be attracted to Krishna. Krishna's pleased. And from within your heart, don't forget, he's there in your heart all the time. He starts to diminish your attraction from Maya. It's a process. The more assiduous you are in the practice, the quickly that'll happen. As it says in the second chapter of Bhagavatam, many of you may know this verse, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayirahoitikam. Now this is the second verse in the answer of Śukadeva Gosvāmī from the sages. What is that dharma by which the soul can actually become happy? You see? So at first he says, Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktera Hokshaje Ahaitukya Patayatha Yayat Mahasupasidati. So the supreme dharma is that which engenders bhakti to adhokshaja. It's a name for Krishna that means the transcendental one, who's beyond our ability of the mind and the senses to know at this time. There's this phrase, one of the first things I learned when I joined the temple in '73, Avan Manasa Gochara, beyond the reach of our words and our mind. So how can we know him? You see? We can know him through sound. Through sound. through hearing the transcendental sound from the Shastra, from the Guru, from the sadhus and advanced devotees. And but the key is faith, of course. These books are going out by the millions, but not everybody is reading them with great attention and faith. So how do we get that faith? That's from association. When you associate with the faithful, if you come into the association of devotees who are seriously practicing, and if you hear from Srila Prabhupada, and it's good if you can to hear the recordings too, because there's a certain quality to the words. You know that famous verse in the 4th canto, I forget the chapter and verse, but it's describing the special quality of the sound of the voice of the Acharya, which is in touch with the saffron mercy particles of the lotus feet of Krishna. And so when you hear it, it has a certain potency. That's why we're not supposed to hear from non-devotees. Avaishnavo mukhodgyanam, who can chant with me? Putam hadikatamitam, shavanam naivakartavyam, sarpotishtam yatapayaha. This is a verse, I think, composed by Sanatana Gosvāmī. So a Vaishnava means non-Vaishnava, mukhodgyanam, from the mouth coming, putam hadikatamitam, the very purifying and powerful nectar of the Krishna Katha. Right? This is what we crave for. But if it comes from the mouth of a non-devotee, then Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam, don't ever hear it. Don't ever hear it. Because it's just like Sarvotishtam Yatapaya, just like milk, which is a nourishing substance, but that has been touched or drunk, a little bit drunk by a poisonous serpent. And he's infused the poison in there. The taste may be the same, but the result is just the opposite. So it may sound like nectar, you know, because he's a very nice kirtaniya, you know, he's singing so beautifully, you know. But it doesn't have the same effect. That's why it's so nice. We have so many recordings of Srila Prabhupada and so many advanced Vaishnavas, you know, in our movement, these kirtan melas and everything. So what does that do? That enters deep into the heart, and purification. Purification of what? Purification from all of these other desires and confusions and doubts. You know, if you did, like this festival last night, everyone had such a good time, you know. But really, what was it? Just throwing flowers on the statue and then throwing it? No, it wasn't that. It may look like that from outside, but it was so many faithful people and chanting Hare Krishna, you know, beautifully, and throwing, you know, for the pleasure of the Lord, these flowers, you know, and you can see how blissful they are, you know, still to this day. So this is the blessing of Krishna consciousness. I recommend this, and I have to give you the exact verse and chapter. 12th canto, I think it's in the 12th chapter, which is the second to last chapter. There's 8 verses that describe the glories of hearing and chanting. And somehow they like to group them in 8 verses, like there's 8 verses in the 3rd canto, where Kapila Deva is teaching his mother about the glories of association with sadhus, sadhu sangha. Now some of you may know this verse, Satam prasangan mama virya sambido. Bṛhaspati, you know that one. You learned it in Gurukul, right? Okay. So that's all about the glories of association with sadhus. You know, what are you going to hear? Kapila Deva speaking as Krishna incarnation. You're going to hear about me, my glories. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata. And it's just like a life-giving elixir for your mind and heart. You see? And what's the result? Tad Joshanad, by applying this yoga, which he says in the next verse or the verse after, is the easiest kind of yoga. Right? Just come to class and hear attentively. Then he says, Tadjosha ashu apavargavatmani, on this path of liberation, you'll develop shraddha for Krishna. Rati means attraction for Krishna, and bhakti, which is in this case prema bhakti, step by step. You see, so it doesn't say you have to be this, and this. You just have to come into the association. But the faith is so important. Adhau shraddha tatik sangha. So where does that faith come? That faith comes from hearing, associating with the faithful, and practicing even a little bit the chanting. You come into the association, you get more inspired, you want to chant more, and eventually let me become initiated, like that. And your whole frame of reference changes. You feel these impulses for the desiring things which you know are self-destructive. It's fading away. It's disappearing. being replaced with the desire to serve Krishna, desire to take prasadam, desire to chant Hare Krishna, to be with the devotees. So that's, we know this verse from the second chapter, Vishaya nivartante nadaharasya dehinak, rasavāja masabhyasya param drishtra nivartate. So the key phrase, param drishtra, you see directly, or you perceive directly, the param, in this case the Supreme, is the Supreme Lord. So this verse says, Vishaya. Now I always like to point this out, the Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. The word for poison, what's the word for poison, Rasika? Visha. Visha. And the word for objects of sense gratification, Vishaya. Does that make sense? Right? It is poison. It's poison for your soul. So this verse says, Vishaya vinivartante. So by force, you can say, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. You know? All right, I'll go to one's a AAA, one's a AA, I think AA. Alcoholics Anonymous, right? There's a very big program up the street in one of these churches. I once went there, not because I'm an alcoholic, but I was invited by an alcoholic who was becoming a devotee. Anyway, it's a long story. But they try to use the same principle. By association, you get strength to give it up. You pray to a higher power. They try to be not sectarian, so they don't name who that higher power is, whatever God you're worshiping. So it's a universal principle. But here it's so powerful because we have the most powerful mantra and the association. So this verse says, you can give it up, you know, by not, it's a niraharas, you're not consuming these objects of sense gratification for some time. But what happens? The taste remains in your heart. That's the problem, just by doing that. But if you give it up by getting the higher taste for something else, then you remain fixed in consciousness. And when I first read that verse, I was just, you know, maybe a month in the movement, and I was saying, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. By full immersion, you know, if you join the ashram and whatever, you know, in those days, those were the days, we had 3 hours a day of Harinam. Everybody would go out. And it was such a, you know, it's a powerful process, as we know. So so now in these 8 verses in the 12th canto, and I'll give you the exact reference, such that I didn't look it up. It's the glories of hearing and chanting, and they repeat 3 verses from the first canto. And Vishwanath Chakravarti has given a commentary. This brackets the whole Bhagavatam. This is the theme of the Bhagavatam. It's based on hearing and chanting. Shu Shu Sho, right, second verse. What do you need anything else but the Bhagavatam? If you just hear it with ardent attention faithfully, you'll see Krishna within your heart and your life will be complete. So this verse, these verses, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it begins with the word Sankirtan. Sankirtamano Bhagavandananda Shrutana Bhava Vasananhi Pungsam. When you engage in hearing, chanting the holy name, form, qualities of the Lord, then He enters your heart. He's already there, but He becomes manifest, and you can feel His influence. And He cleanses away all the impurities in your heart, just like the powerful sun will send all the darkness away. Or maybe you're in a cave, and there's fog in there, so then the powerful wind will get rid of the fog in the cave, you know, like that. It's 2 analogies. So he goes back and forth, and then he says this verse, some of you may be familiar if you study that 5th chapter of the first canto, often quoted by Prabhupada. Nayad vachas chitta padang hare yasho, jagat pavitram praganita karachit. Tad dvangshatirtam nato hangsa sevatam yatrachitas tattva hisadavo mala. Bṛhaspati, you know this one, right? Nayad vachas, crows. Few verses are different. Dvangshatirtam, not Vayasyam tirtam. So this is a very pertinent verse. If some words were very nicely composed, beautiful literature, you know, written by Shakespeare, you know, or by anyone else, they may have, you know, have all of these ornaments and everything of literary work, but they don't deal with anything having to do with Krishna or Krishna Bhakti. It's just like a place of pilgrimage for crows. It's a polite way of saying a big garbage heap. When Ashram Maharaj comes, he always makes this point. what it is, you know. And the swan-like devotees, unlike the crows, they don't visit there, you know. But then the next verse describes what the Bhagavatam is. Tad Bhagavasargo Janataga Samplavo. A few words, a little change. Yasmin Prati Shlokam Abaddavatyapi Naman Yanantasya Yashon Kitanayak Shunvanti Gayanti Gunanti Sarava. So, but those words which are meant to bring about a revolution in this world's misdirected civilization. This is a famous line from Prabhupada's translation. Every verse, every sentence may be miscomposed. It's not very, high literary, may not. But it deals wholly and solely with the glories of Hari, with Krishna and the service and the devotees, Then the great souls, they listen to and they relish this, just like swans. They're swans rather than crows, So that verse is also in this, and Vishwanath Chakravarti says, this is like these verses bracket the Bhagavatam. It's important to know them, So he goes on, and I'm going to go through all the verses, but the last verse, which I read, how many are familiar with that extensive biography by Bhakti Gosvāmī written about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? Right? It's amazing. And there are different chapters on different aspects of his life. And one was dealt with the verses which he quoted all the time. And the last verse of these 8 is one that he would quote. So I'm just going to share that one with you. It's very pertinent. Then we can have some questions. So the word is avismriti. Now, I worked on the 12th canto. When we had that wrong, we had it just as remembrance, avismriti. But this is more than remembrance. It's unbroken remembrance, never forgetting. You see how the difference? Remembrance can come and go, right? Which we remember, but then sometimes we forget Krishna. But this is constant remembrance, and therefore not forgetting. This is the result of seriously hearing and chanting, of dedicating your life, trying to fill your whole day with hearing and chanting, glorifying Krishna somehow. You're in the kitchen cooking? Yes, I'm hearing the kirtan. I think Kanai hears more kirtan than any of us. He's always got kirtan playing in there. Wonderful recorded kirtans. But anyway, somehow or other, staying with that sound, you see? And how do we chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day? Did you ever wonder about that? We read this every morning in these several quotes. Well, how can you chant when you're sleeping? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, internally. So there has to be that it has to go internal at a certain time. And I have one verse I'll share with you about the tongue. It's instructing the tongue. This is from a series of verses written by Bilvamangal Thakur. Each one ended with Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. I think that's the title. Are you familiar with that? So this verse is a instruction to the tongue. Jive, Jihve. Don't confuse it with Jiva. Tongue. Jive Sadaiva Bhajasundarani Krishnasya Namani Manoharani Samasta Bhaktardi Vinashanani Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. If anyone wants these, I can send them to you. So he's saying, oh tongue, constantly chant the holy name of Hari. Jive Sadaiva Bhajasundar Krishnasya Namani, the holy name of Krishna, which is Manoharani, so enchanting for the mind, you see. And what does it do? Samasta Bhaktardi Vinashanani. It destroys all the distresses of the devotees. There's various versions of this verse. Some have different third line, but that's this one. And then he gives you samples. Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. And then there's another verse, which I'll share with you, which is another instruction to the tongue to always chant Hare Krishna, in the Mukunda Mala Stotra, which Srila Prabhupada started. It's one of the books that he started but didn't finish, because that got to doing the Bhagavatam, and he had facility to actually, produce it. The movement started. He started that in India. If you ever get to see, or maybe a facsimile of one of those first Bhagavatams, first canto, that probably some of you are familiar. If you look on the title page, you'll see other books by the same author. Mukunda Mala Stotra is there. Even though he hadn't finished it, he still it started translating it. So this verse is about the holy name, and he's giving so many instructions. I taught this one to Bhakta Bronson, who later became Balaram Das, our temple president, when he first came. Shatru Chedaika mantram sakalam upanishad vakya sampuja mantram sangsaro cheda mantram samudita tamasak sanghaniyana mantram Sarvaishwaryaika mantram vyasana buddhika sandashta santrana mantram jive Shri Krishna mantram japa japa satatam janma sapalya mantram. Probably those who are familiar with verses, you could even understand that last line. So I'll give you the last line first. O tongue, constantly chant these names of Krishna. Jive Shri Krishna mantram, a mantra composed of the names of Krishna. Japa japa satatam. Obviously what that means. Always chant, right? And then what does that do? Janma sapalya mantram, and make my birth fruitful. In other words, have a perfect life by going back to Godhead. So here he gives the benefits of this constant chanting, which we should try to aspire for. Shatru means enemies. Shatru Chedaika Mantram. It is the mantra by which you can conquer all your enemies. Now these aren't your enemies, external enemies. These are your internal enemies. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, sloth. All of these things that we may struggle with. So if you chant, then you become enlivened. You won't want to sleep and eat it so much anymore. Shatru Chedaika Mantram. Sakalam Upanishad Vakya Sampuja Mantram. And it's worshipped by all the words of the Upanishads. In other words, the culmination of the Upanishads and all of the Vedic writings is the holy name of Krishna. And then, Sangsaro Cheda Mantram, it will cut off your bondage in samsara. You see? Sangsaro Cheda Mantram. How? Samatita Tamasak, by dispelling all the ignorance in your heart. You become full of knowledge, which is already there. It just has to, you purify the heart and it comes out. And then he says, Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram. It is the source of all opulences, not material opulences, but spiritual opulences. Faith in Krishna, determination, utsahan, all of those things, we want. Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram, and Vyasana Bhujika Sandashta, and it's like a medicine or a herb that will protect you from the bite of the serpents of your sinful reactions. In other words, you'll be free of your sinful reactions and all of these other things. So tongue, so therefore always chant the name composed of Krishna's name, a mantra composed of Krishna's names. So we may have gone a little far afield from Bali Mahārāja and Vamana Dev, but this is the subject matter for hearing. Mahārāja quoted a verse yesterday. He referred to a verse that I recalled at the very end of the Rasadev's chapters. Krishna is saying why he comes. We know from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, as he quoted, he comes, yes, Parvachanaya Sadhanam Vinashayata Dushkritam, to protect the devotees, annihilate the demons, and reinstitute Dharma, appear birth after birth, or age after age, yada yada hi dharmasya. But this is more intimate reason why he comes. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusam deyamastitaha bhajate tadushi krida yashrutva tatparo bhavet. When I come in my human-like form, human-like, but aren't we Krishna-like? I mean, isn't that turning it backwards? How is it human-like? So that's explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti. He comes in a human form that all of his intimate devotees can relate to very easily. So that's why it's a human-like form. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusam deham astitaha bhajate tadushi krida, and I perform those pastimes which will fascinate my devotees, and they'll become even more eager to chant my glories. So this is when Krishna came, just 5,000 years ago. Yesterday, in terms of Brahma's lifetime, he comes once in a day of Brahma, right? Which is 8,640,000,000 years long. So are we fortunate or not? 5,000 years ago, Krishna came. 500 some odd years ago, Krishna came again as Lord Chaitanya. So I like to point to this: we are so fortunate among all the people born in this, in this day of Brahma. Krishna just came, and so we should take advantage of it. So this verse is explaining to us why not chant all the time? You'll conquer all your enemies, all of these things trying to pull you down and bring you back, and illusion and madness, everything, all these modes of nature, and you will be liberated from samsara, and you'll get all spiritual blessings, which are like great treasures, more valuable than winning the lottery, $100 billion or whatever they get now, $100 million. That's every time I take my morning walk on the corner there, they say, "Oh, play the lottery, this big thing," and there's a sign, "Oh, it's up to 100 million now." 100 million. Oh, okay, 100 million. That's gambling. We don't do that. All right, any questions? I'm sorry I went over time, but a lot of verses to read. Mike. A note taker. Very impressive.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class.
I
really like the direction you took the class, but I did have a question that I wrote before, just as we were reading the texts.
Go ahead.
About Prahlad Maharaj, when he became king of the demons, what were his duties, responsibilities? What was he attempting to reform the demons, or is that just like not part of the job?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's blessing Bali. Yeah, this is one of the puzzles. In other words, that you have the changing roles. I mean, Bali is obvious, but so does Shukracharya. I mean, when did he teach Bali to give charity to the devotees? I mean, that's not the proper teachings of a king, a spiritual master of the demons, right? So Prahlad, he took over, obviously the kingdom. He's called Prahlad Mahārāja even when he's 5, but actually he eventually does become Mahārāja, the king. And we assume that he wasn't teaching, he wasn't keeping all the teachers, the demon teachers, and raising them. That he was teaching just like he taught to his friends, turning the demons into devotees. So I'd have to look at the Bhagavatam and see how it refers to it, and see if there's some teaching there. I can do some, but it doesn't. You just get the sense that he was the influence for good, and they basically became devotees. And all of his descendants, they may be titularly demons. Manasura was pretty demonic, but he got the blessing of fighting with Krishna, not being killed by him, losing all his extra arms, which were just a pain in the neck. He complains to Shiva, "There's no one I can fight with. Who could I?" So he's beating him against the mountains. But Prahlad Maharaj, he turned all of the demons into devotees. And I can assume that. I'm going to guess that, and if that's wrong, then I'll write to you and I'll let you know. Okay, Haribo. Any other questions, comments? All right, I'll do that. What I do when I give the class in the evening, I always end with some little poem. So this is a verse about the holy name. Some of you may have heard this one before. It's ever fresh. By Raghunadas Goswami in his Bali. And first of all, we all know when we're chanting Hare Krishna, right, we're actually addressing Radha and Krishna, so these are names in Krishna. So he says there, Radheti nama navasundara sidu mugdham, Krishneti nama madhurabhutagada dugdham, Savakshanam, that's not me, Savakshanam surabhiraga himena ramyam, kritvata daiva pibame vasane chadarte. Now, does someone know whose that phone could be? Could be. Okay, they answered it. Here's the translation. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes, such is the name of Radha, by whom all 3 worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet, such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling, fragrant spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy in any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. So if you want that verse, send me an email. I'll send you all my poetry, and you can find where it is there. There's some others, many others you might find interesting. I should probably give it out. But don't you have it? I think, Shiracharya or Gopinath, you don't have my poetry file. Probably not. You probably would remember. All right, so here's the email. You can remember. Dravida, just like South India. Dravida 108 at Gmail. And I'll send you my poetry file, and I have a recording of them too. I can send you. And many books, PDF, that you might be interested in. Okay, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your attention. And keep hearing and chanting. Actually, thank Bhakti Vijnana Gauranga Maharaj for coming and visiting. He's always welcome here. And thank you, Maharaj, for that extra ecstatic kirtan this morning.